We'll do the 37th Maimer in Maimorim Meluket in the third volume. And this is B'Seyayta Dishmaya. This was on Shabbos. The Rebbe said this Maimer in Shabbos Parshas Tazria Metzora, the third day of Iyar, in Hey Tavshim Mem Zayin. And then it came out and it was published in a Kuntres, the booklet of Beis Iyar, Tavshin Nun, and that was in honor towards the second day of Iyar, Tiferes Shebi Tiferes, the birthday of the Rebbe Maharash Nishmas Oiden, and that was published this Maimer. The date over there is the 30th of Nisan, Aleph Deresh Chodesh Iyar, Shnas Hey Tavshin Nun. The Maimer starts with a pasuk in Shir Hashirim in Perik Dalet pasuk Yud Beis. The pasuk talks over there. It says, "Gan Na'ul Achosi Kalo Gal Na'ul Mayon Chosum." It talks about a garden that is closed. Says Hashem Achosi Kalo to the Jewish people. The Maimer will explain that the Gan Na'ul represents when the Yidden lock up themselves and don't allow any strange to come into them. And this is equated to the betrothal of a woman, in which the woman is designated just to marry her husband later on. And the second part of the pasuk, Gal Na'ul, would talk about a closed, as the Rebbe would say, we'll explain also the specific, meaning of Gal, but this would mean the marriage and the Torah and mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are considered the Gan Na'ul, which the Yid locks up only for Hashem, and the Gal Na'ul is the Torah, as we will say, Mayon Chosum, a sealed well, which is represented in the idea of marriage and how we are totally dedicated to the Eibishter. Everything else we close out, as the Rebbe will bring down the various different explanation in the pasuk. So the Rebbe brings down first Umei Admur Maharash. So the Rebbe Maharash Bal Yom HaHiledes, whose birthday is on Beis Iyar. That is when the Maimer was said the day after on Gimel Iyar. The Yom HaHiled is the Beis Iyar. Maimer, in the Maimer, the Parshas Tazria Metzora, the Hemshech Matzah Zu Tov Reish Mem. There is a Hemshech, which is from the year Tov Reish Mem. In that Hemshech, the Maimer of Parshas Tazria Metzora, the Rebbe Maharash brings down the Pirush HaTargum, the interpretation of the Targum of what is the meaning Gan Na'ul, and he explains Gan Na'ul is referencing the Gan Eden, that the Gan Eden is locked up. The Kemoish Gan Eden Hu Na'ul, just as the Gan Eden is locked. The Efsher Likones Boikim Nefoshes Hat Sadikim, and cannot enter into that Gan Eden. Only the souls of the Tzadikim, so it's locked for everybody else. Kain Yisrael, and this is also Achosi Kalo. What is the example? Also, likewise, the Yidden Oigedim Pischehem Lebalum. They close up their doors, their entrances. They don't allow anybody in, only for their husbands, only for Hashem Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Only one that we allow inside is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Maimer explains why we are saying that a garden is considered something which brings you delight, which brings pleasure, that all the pleasures that we have is locked up and reserved only for Hashem. The gan hu inyan hatainug. Gan is the idea of delight, of pleasure. The inyan gal no'ul. So what is the meaning of a gan no'ul, a locked garden? Who she'ein hatainug rak belukus, that the only delight that we have is only in godliness. As indicated in the pasuk, the imcha loy chafatzti, that with you I have no other desire. So that's the idea of gan no. The Rebbe points out now that previously in that hemshech, in that maimer, the Rebbe brings down the gan no to represent action, that our action are locked to Hashem. In this maimer, he adds that our delight is locked in only to Hashem. Ulahoyer, I want to point out, in the maimer before proceeding this maimer of Tazri Metzora in that hemshech, mevayer the gan nol husur mira. Over there, he explains that the locked gan is to stay away from evil, to stay away from, not to stay away from other pleasures, but just to stay away from other evils. Staying away from evil indicates just not doing, not enjoying things besides God, but not doing. The Inyan Sur Meira, when we talk about staying away from bad, will be Iker B'Poyel Mamish. That's mainly talking about in actuality, not to do bad. So what is the novelty in this Maimer that the Alter Rebbe, that the Rebbe Maharash is adding to the previous Maimer, is that he's bringing down here the Pirush, the translation of the Targum, who the Gan Noul, who Shegam Hatainuk Shaloi, Urag Belukus, that we're saying it's a Gan Noul, that even the pleasure, the only pleasure of the person, not only is his action, only what Hashem wants it to do, and he doesn't do anything else, it's no, but it's a gan no. That's based on the Pirush of the Targum that says that the gan is Gan Eden, and that it's only in godliness. But the Rebbe is going to ask now to bring the point that gan is the level of Tainug. The Rebbe Marash doesn't have to bring the Targum. In the Pashat context, a gan is a place of enjoyment. And as the Metzudas David translates over there, why push it to the Gan Eden and say that the Gan Noel, just like the Gan Eden? The Metzudas David Allah Pasuk Mefarish, in the Metzudas David on the Pasuk he explained, She Yisrael Heim Kegan Hano, that the Yidden are like a garden which is locked up. The Targum said that Gan Eden is locked up only for tzaddikim, not for others. But he says, push the regular garden, which is locked up. Nobody else can enter there. Only the only of the garden can come in there. To say that who can come into a yid, Choisikalo is only the garden, the one who owns the garden. That means that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, but Tzarich Lav. So now in this Pashat Pshat, we see in the Gan that nobody can come in, is even in a regular garden. And what is a regular garden? It's a place where there's pleasure. So why do we need the Pirush of the Targum that it means Gan Eden? This, that a garden is an idea of delight. That also would be by an ordinary, regular garden, being cane. So in that case, Gam Hamoshel the Gan Noel Kipshute. Also from the moshel of a literal garden that's locked up, move on. So we also understand the Inyan Oigdim Pischeimu. What does it mean that they lock up their entrances, that the Yidden close up, they don't allow anything is? We know Shat Tainuk Shaloi, Hurag Belakus, that his delight is only in godliness. Umami Toisa Bahavonos Inyan, the Yisrael Egdim Pischeim. What is added to understanding the idea we're trying to represent Yisrael Egdim Pischeim, that the Jews, they close up their entrances, they don't allow any other Tainug. Why not the regular Pirush in Pasuk, a regular garden? Now they have Pirush. What is it added by knowing Shegan Noel Koyal Gan Eden? Like the Targum, that the locked up garden is the Gan Eden. What's added to that? Ubefrat, especially the Gan Noel Bepashtus, Kipirush Hamitzudas David. The literal meaning that the closed garden, not the Gan Eden, but just a regular garden, which the only one who has rights is the Bailing, as the Mitzudas David translate. Masim l'chayda yoser lahanimshal. This is more fitting to the nimshal, what we're trying to bring out. The kivon shegan noul bahanimshal, hu atainug shel ha'odom. Since what is the closed garden in the nimshal, which is the enjoyment, the pleasure, the delight of the person Yisrael the Yid, shu noul v'sogur mi'lis aneg b'tanugei ha'odom, that he is closed up, he's locked up, and he's closed up, and he doesn't delight in any of worldly delights. So that would more fit a regular garden. So seemingly the fitting marshal for this should be Umigan Stam is from a regular garden. The Lama Mefarish HaTargum. So why does the Targum, and I guess the Rebbe Marash brings down the Targum also, Shagan Noel Koyal Gan Eden. Gan Noel goes on Eden. Shumil Hatchila Atainug Belakus. Gan Eden, to begin with, is Atainug Belakus. The more fitting is a regular garden, a Yid who may have other Tanugim, he locks it up so that he doesn't delight from other things. But we can talk about a literal garden, not the level of which is godliness, Milchatchila, which is the Gan Eden. Base. So the Rebbe says the Yuvon Zal Mishakomapi Mashakosu Bahamaimer will can understand this based on what the Maimer says, that the two levels of Gal Noul and Gal Noul is the two levels of Kiddushin and Nisuim. This locked garden and the Gal, the locked Gal, represent the two stages of Kiddushin and Nisuim. The Gal Noul, who Kinyan Kiddushin, the locked garden is like the Kiddushin. And he explains this based on what we know. The Kiddushin is Kadshenu in the mitzvahs. In mitzvahs, bring the yin of Kiddushin. And the Sein Chelkenu b'Seirosacha, Torah brings Chelkenu, brings the level of Nisuyin, of marriage. The Kadshenu b'Mitzvah hu meloshin Kiddushin. Sanctify us with the mitzvahs comes from the language betroth us with the mitzvah. Loshin Kiddushin. What is the idea, the Inyan HaKiddushin hu? Hasmana. Kiddushin is sort of an invitation. You invite and bring in Isha Hamiskadeshes that she is invited and ready, and she is designated just for her husband. By becoming designated to her husband, this is during the betrothal, that makes her prohibited in the whole world because she's designated only to her husband. That's the Kadishenu, that's the Kiddushin that takes place by mitzvahs. And then comes V'sein Chalkeinu B'Seirosecha, and give us a portion in your Torah. That is who Inyan Hanisuyim. That is the marriage Hamshocha B'Pnimius. Then there is a extension that comes from the Baal to the Isha, from Hashem to the Yidden in a Pnimius. To the extent that the person koilet absorbs as hamshocha, that which is brought down. Va'ad shenasis, to the extent that it becomes chelkeinu, it becomes our part. It unites with the person, and it becomes part of them. The Yisrael of the These are the two levels. That what comes through mitzvahs is makif. That's like the erusin. That's like mizuman prepared for them. And there's no primis hamshocha. It's just b'chinas makif. That comes in a way of makif that surrounds. Upuloso b'ha'adam hamekayim es hamitzvah. What is the impact in the person that observes the mitzvah is mainly beikar, is mainly sheyiya muvdal ma'atayvis u'mekomidas, so that he should be separate himself from the desires and from all bad characteristic, to remove the person from negative tendencies and desires. Bedugmas kiddushin, this would be similar to the betrothal. The zeshe isha miskadeshes lebaylahu, the fact that a woman is betrothed to her husband, there is no yichud yet connection, an inner connection between them. It's beikar, mainly it manifests itself in the fact that she becomes prohibited to the whole world. That happens through betrothal. That happens through erusin. That happens through kiddushin, through the kachenu, which is the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs mainly help the person to get rid of the negative characteristics and negativity. But then later on, al yidei zeh, and then through first doing the mitzvahs and getting rid of the negativity, al yidei zeh, unase kli likloit oir haTorah, then he becomes a vessel, a vehicle to absorb the light of Torah. He's ready for marriage, which v'Torah scha b'soich meyoy. Your Torah is inside. That's not makiv. That's penimis. Torah is in my inside, which is the level of nisuin, of the level of marriage. And the Rebbe adds now to the Maimer of the Rebbe Marash that not only is there a difference in the impact on the person, whether it's makif or it's pnimi, but actually there is a higher light when it comes to when it comes to the level of Torah. Yesh lahoisiv, and we can add shadim yen the mitzvahs v'Torah. This that we are comparing, the comparison of mitzvahs and Torah le'erusim v'nisuyin, to marriage, betrothal marriage, will be shnei inyonim, is in two matters. A, the erusin we say is makif, nisuyin is pnimis, b'soich meyoy, and B, that the erusin and nisuyin brings down the tipod, is the union, which is the gashmis, which comes from the moyach, the etzem. Let's see. First, it's on the way, it's nimshach, that we discussed earlier. That the way the hamshocha comes to the person who fulfills the mitzvahs, it's in a surrounding way. And how does the Torah come to the person who learns Torah? It's in the inner, it's nisuyin, marriage canal. That's the first thing, as we had spoken earlier. But also the gamba hamshocha atzma, there's also a difference in hamshocha itself. The hamshocha, the hamshocha of Torah, the hamshocha naili supnimis yosef. It's a greater hamshocha and a more inner hamshocha Me'amshocha the mitzvahs, then the amshocha mitzvahs. But to the extent it's so much greater, the amshocha that comes through Torah is so much greater to the extent that we call it chitzonius next to the pnimius. That the amshocha, the Torah, amshocha, the mitzvahs, ubechinas achurayim. That's considered to be like the hind, the back, the gabe hamshocha, the Torah, relative to the hamshocha that comes from Torah. And that's why hamshocha, the Torah, idugmas hamshochas hatipa nisuyin. The hamshocha of Torah is compared to the way the seed is nimshach, which is marriage. Shehi hamshocha asmis, which is an essence of hamshocha. That means that the Torah's hamshocha is also from a higher place. The Yeshloimar and the Rebbe wants to add Shegam Inyan Zed, also this second part, that it is Hamshocha Atzmi is hinted in Inyan Zemerumas, the V'sein Chelkeinu B'Seidesecha, give a portion of your Torah. Before we were talking just about Nisuyin, that it's Bipnimius, so it becomes Chelkeinu. But here we're talking about it is Hamshocha Atzmis, and that's why it's V'sein Chelkeinu B'Seidesecha. V'losh Shein Chelkeinu Shnei Inyonim, because you have two aspects of it. You have Shatoyre Nasis Chelkeinu Di Yisrael. It becomes Chelkeinu, it becomes a portion. It's Pnimius. It's like the tip Hamshocha, but also V'shich Chelik MaKadosh Baruch Hu Chelkeinu, our part, which means this is Eberster is apart from the Eberster. It's a part of themselves. It becomes part of them. That's the Pnimi, and it's also a part of the Eberster. The Kshat or Teifes Bechelik Mina Etzem Ato Teifes Bechul. Because when you take apart a chelik of the etzem, so if you take a chelik of the Eberster, means you have the whole Eberster here. So you're getting a much higher hamshocha because you're getting a chelik of the Eberster. And that's the hamshocha, which is through Torah, which is greater than this. So we have, in the way Torah is pnimius and mitzvahs is makiv, Torah is etzem, and mitzvahs are achurayim, are not the chelik, not the etzem. So now the Rebbe says this whole idea that first, in order before we can get the Sein Chelkeinu B'Seidesecha, is really expressed like before Matan Torah. There needed to be some mitzvahs, and from Yitzias Mitzrayim, there is always the preparation of the Sein Chelkeinu B'Seidesecha. There needs to be the Katshenu, the preparation through Katshenu B'Seidesecha Gimel. Yesh lois, if we can add this that we say that first betroth us with the mitzvahs, and that is the introduction before this sein chelkeinu dipnimis. Then we get the portion into the sechel. This is also one of the reasons for shekoidem yitzias mitzrayim. Nebra Parshas HaChodesh, that before they came out of Mitzrayim, the portion of HaChodesh is Elochem, the Parshas Boy, that we have the laws over there. Sheyesh bo kama v'kama mitzvahs. So we have a lot of many mitzvahs. Sheneges ledoires v'nimnes b'minyan ha-mitzvahs, that also, it's not just they needed it for that time. There's mitzvahs that apply for generations. It's part of the count of the 630 mitzvahs. That means it wasn't just brought down over there, but it's to have mitzvahs before the Parshat Chodesh, before the exodus of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Because Yitzias Mitzrayim began Matan Torah, the V'sein Chelkeinu B'Seidesecha, before the V'sein Chelkeinu V'nit Katshenu Mitzvah. Ki b'Yitzias Mitzrayim Hilschala Inyan the Matan Torah. Yitzias Mitzrayim started the Inyan of Matan Torah. V'lochein, and therefore Lifnei Yitzias Mitzrayim Nitztavu become a mitzvah. So that's why before Yitzias Mitzrayim they were instructed with many mitzvahs, with some mitzvahs. Shezeh hoyo hagadama lo inyan the matan Torah. So those mitzvahs were the kachenu b'mitzvah sechel. They were the introduction to the Ina Matan Torah. Shehischil b'yitzias Mitzrayim. That started with Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's why there needed to be some mitzvahs over there, because as an introduction to the same kachenu b'mitzvah sechel, we need mitzvahs. We need the kachenu b'mitzvah sechel. And after Yitzias Mitzrayim, still before Matan Torah, we had the Parshas Kadesh, which has instruction about the mitzvah. But we also have, Parshas Chodesh, but we also have actual mitzvahs that they were instructed in Morah, 10 mitzvahs. After Yitzias Mitzrayim, but before Matan Torah, the Gemara counts there were 10 mitzvahs that the Jewish people have been instructed in Morah before they came to Matan Torah to Har Sinai. That was a preparation of Matan Torah. So we see that you need mitzvahs before as a preparation before you come to Matan Torah. And this is also the Rebbe says in a more general way why the Torah begins with this story of Bereshis Bara. In a more general way, we can say, the Torah starts off, this is like the Matan Torah, but it begins with Bereshis Bara. And the Rashi brings down because to tell his people the strength of his actions that Eibishter created the world, to give them the inheritance of the nation that the Yidden have a right to Eretz Yisrael. That part in Torah, who al derech hagdoma, the Maisa mitzvahs l'Torah, similar to the introduction of mitzvahs l'Torah, because most of the mitzvahs are in Eretz Yisrael. So by telling us that we have Eretz Yisrael, that's the hakdama of mitzvahs to Torah. Kirubam shel ha-mitzvahs tluyas ba'aretz. Most of the mitzvahs are hinged on the land. Nachlas goyim. So before the Torah starts teaching Torah, Matan Torah, Torah itself, we have the introduction about Eretz Yisrael, about the mitzvahs. And also the Rebbe explains that this is also from the reasons that before the festival of Shavuos, in which there's the time that we were given the Torah, we have many and many special mitzvahs. Special mitzvahs before we come to Matan Torah. First of all, we have a mitzvahs the Chag Pesach, the mitzvahs that we do on Pesach. And then we have a mitzvah Sfiras Omer, the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Because we have to start before Matan Torah, we need the Kachenu mitzvah Sechel. The K'moi Shel B'chol Yom K'Shodom Nase B'riya Chadosha, just like every day, when the person becomes a new created being. Iker Limudat Torah. The main, when does the person really start learning the Torah? That's after fulfilling several mitzvahs, which is the Kriyas Shema, reading the Shema, the Tefillin, and the Tefillin V'chulu. Al derech zehu bizmanei hashonah. So similar to every day is also the way the times of the year. Shebachag as Pesach b'chol shana v'shana uleidas Yisrael. On Pesach every year, that's when we're born. And then so la'achrei kim hamitzvus hayimiyuchodes desmanim elu. And after we fulfill the special mitzvahs of this time, which is mitzvahs the Chag Pesach, the mitzvahs of the Pesach, or the festival, or the Meis Sfiras Omer, and the Meis Sfiras Omer, Uzman Matan Tereseinu, then becomes Matan Tereseinu. So here we had the several examples in which the Kachenu b'mitzvah Sechot takes place before Sechel Kenu b'Seder Sechot. That's why before Yitzias Mitzrayim, you had the Parshas HaChodesh. That's why we had some mitzvahs, the Morah, that came before Matan Torah. And that's why also the Torah starts with Breishis Bara and Nachlas Goyim, because mitzvahs in the beginning, because mitzvahs come before Torah. And this is also why before Shavuos we have the mitzvahs of Pesach, which is the mitzvahs, and then we come to Matan Torah. Continues in the Maimer, is the Mamshel Maimer. Continues the Maimer. The Kemoi Shekidushe Ish V'Isho Kipshuto. Just as the betrothal of a man and a woman, literally. How does the betrothal take place? How does the Kiddushin take place? It's by the man giving an item. Pruto, Shava Pruto, either a actual Pruto or something that's valued a Pruto. Shaboy, with that Pruto, she can buy items to sustain her life. In other words, value that she can sustain her life with this. Similar to this is as it relates to this, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sanctified us with his mitzvahs. That through the observance of the mitzvahs, there is a vitality extended to the person that fulfills the mitzvah. That's his kiddushin. That's the chaye nafshay. That's the v'chay bohem. That's the chayes that he has. Kosuf asher yasa oisom ha'odom v'chay bohem. Person should live by the Torah. So that's the mitzvahs that we have that gives us chayes, our chaye nafshay, which Hashem gives us in order to betroth us. Ay v'agam sha'mitzvahs hem rotzin ha'elyon. Talking before it's soivev. Mitzvahs are the level of soivev, rotzin ha'elyon. The rotzin hu b'chinas soivev. That rotzin surrounds him mitzad atzmei hu kodesh umudel meha'olimus. On its own, it's holy, it's distinct, separate from the world. How do we say that it gives us chayes? But nevertheless, from that soivev extends a chayes la'odom shemekayim hamitzvahs, a vitality to the person that observes the mitzvah, a chayes penimi, an inner chayes. Okay, move on. How do we see this? The proof of this is that the mitzvahs impact the actual person himself to separate him from midas rois, which means it's not just in thought and speech, but it touches his midas. As also understood from the fact the light that extends through the mitzvahs that impacts not just his thought, speech, and action. It also touches the emotion. Till the want and the delight of the person, it impacts them. Move on. The Sif Aleph Beis is brought before in Sif Aleph Beis, Mahamayim of the Maimon. Shall Yidei HaMitzvahs Na'aseh Muvdal Mehatayvus Umekol Midas HaRosh. Through the mitzvahs, he becomes separated from the desires and bad characteristic traits. So it means that the mitzvahs impact the taivas and the midas. And further, we said, V'she'inyan oigdin pischayim. What does it mean? They close up their entrances. Shenasal yidei ha-mitzvahs, that comes through the mitzvahs. That is, that we said, gan no'ul, the level of mitzvahs gan no'ul, that his delight is in kus. So it even impacts that the tainug he only has is in godliness. So it impacts the tainug as well. So then why is that not b'pnimis? So it is b'pnimis then. So why did we say before that Torah is the pnimis? This is a concern. Elo shekol zeh rak b'chitzonos halei. This only reaches the externality of the heart. V'lo niklat It has not yet been observed in the inner sides of the depths of his heart. And that's why they're called Arusa, betrothed. Because betrothal, marriage is the union. Betrothal, it doesn't yet reach it. That's why it's called Arusa. But not to say that it didn't impact. So there is a chayas of a chay bahem that comes from the mitzvahs, even to the extent that it impacts the rotzen of the title. Midah is everything, not only machshav d'umayis. So that's why we can explain the explanation of the Targum. Gan Noel Koyi al Gan Eden. He says that the Gan Noel is talking about the Gan Eden. Cannot enter there only the souls of tzaddikim. So why is that? The Oigdim Pischayim be'ofen hanal shegam hatainik shelo yirag b'lekus, because this concept that to what extent do they close their entrances in such a way that it reaches even the tainuk, not only machshavet dibur ma'aser, not only also the tainuk, to lock it up that his whole tainuk should be only in godliness shelo yirag b'lekus. Who al yidei hamshochas ha'oyer milmayla. That comes through bringing down from above, not through his action, but from above. The kiyum hamitzvos, through the observance of mitzvahs. The lochein hamoshel al zeh. So, what is the proper moshel who make Gan Eden? Gan Eden has a godly tainug. Tainug elikisha milmayla. It's a godly tainug that comes from above. That's the proper moshel to represent the higher level of light that we get from above, in order that our lock up, we shouldn't allow it, would even go to the level of tainug. And we can say that this is Zesha maybe Mahamaimer. This that he brings in the Maimer, in the opening, the meaning, the explanation of the timing group. Because this explanation is the basis for the explanation of Maimer. This is the basis that the Maimer explained, that they close up their entrances is Kachenu b'mitzvah, and Kachenu comes the mitzvahs that come from Hashem, and that in order to be successful, you need the godly, inspired Tainug, and that is Gan Eden. And because he brings down the opening Taichov that talks about Gan Eden, that is the basis for telling us later on that Kachenu b'mitzvah is even to the level of Tainug. Hey, and deeper, yes, we can say by first introducing, explaining, why is the Maimer Bechlal at length explaining now the Seinchel Keinu B'Seiresecha Shohiyan Anasuyin, that's the marriage. This Maimer was talking about Kachenu B'Mitzvah. It was talking about the Gan Noel. It wasn't talking about the Gal, about the marriage. He was talking about mainly about why is he going in to explain at length the idea of the marriage and Nisuyin. This doesn't seem to fit this Maimer. But in this Maimer he explains that Gan Noel who in Kachenu B'Mitzvah, that the closed garden is the idea of mitzvahs. Why is it important over here in this Maimer to explain Seichel Keinu B'Seiresecha? We're trying to explain what means the Kachenu B'Mitzvah. B'Pashtus, yes, loymar. Pashas, we can say the reason because the Zeshem Mevayer Khan or Inyan the same Chalkenu B'Sirisecha. Why is explaining Sechem B'Sirisecha? Negeya, because that connects. That's important. Legal no shebehem kosu, because in the pasuk after gan no it says gal no. That talks about marriage. The Isa b'medrash, the medrash it says that gan no elu habesulis. The gan no, that's the besulis, unmarried. Gan no elu habeulis, that is talking about the marriage. So we're already talking in this pasuk about both, about Sein Chalkenu Kachenu Mitzvah, the besulis, the makim mitzvahs, and also gan no the besulis. Umevayer at Tzemach Tzedek, and Tzemach Tzedek explains the gan no lubchinas arusa, the gan no lubchinas nesua. That the gan no that's his arusa, gan no lubchinas nesua, and therefore maybe that's why he explains also the seichel kein b'sirasechel the hemshach haposuk. This the Rebbe says that we're saying that gan and gal is in marriage. We can mekash is in Pirush at Tzemach Tzedek. With the Tzemach Tzedek's explanation. The gal no, we're talking about Nesua now, the gal no, the closed gal, gal einai babita niflos m'teresacha. That same idea, that gal, reopen my eyes, reveal my eyes, and I will see wonders from your Torah, the wonders of Torah. And that is, when is that going to be? This is going to be lost in love. When the Eibishter is going to reveal us, we're going to see the niflos, the Torah Sacha. We'll see the Torah Shal Mashiach in the future to come. Lost in love. The main marriage is going to be in the future to come, and when we're going to get the revelations, will be the Primis HaTorah, and that's why it's Gal, and Gal is marriage, because that is when the revelation will be, the real marriage will be in lost with love, when there will be the Primis HaTorah. But it's still not so understood why in this minor is he bringing down the Seichel Keinu B'Seder Sechel, the second part, Avol on Sheba Minor Zeh. The Hemshech Mamatzazu, in the Hemshech Mamatzazu. Gal no, he's only discussing Gal no, Babiur of Gano, and the explanation of Gal no Maschil B'Mayim B'Shalach, that is the next minor. So why would he discuss over here the idea of marriage? Why is he explaining here the second part? Because that way we have additional explanation. The Gano, we can understand better the Gano, the Kachenu Mitzvah. The Zeh shall be the Gano. This, that through the avoida of a Gano, Kachenu Mitzvah, avoida of mitzvahs, boim l'sein chelkeinu b'seder sechel, we reach the level of sein chelkeinu b'seder sechel, b'pnimius, klito b'pnimius, to receive it, absorb the pnimius, who lifi sham shochadam mitzvah, that mitzvah shall yodon nasa kedushin, is because the hamshach of the mitzvahs through which the kedushin takes place, because it comes in a way of a chai bohem. It has a chayis pnimi. There is a pnimi, yeah, not in the pnimi, but there is still a pnimi from the kachenu mitzvah. Eloshegilu inyan zeh. When will it be revealed? That chayis pnimi. How does it reveal? When it is seichel keinu b'seder, then it comes out openly. But we already have in the Kachenim Mitzvah, we already have, because that's how come we have the Seichel Keinu B'Seder Secha in Apnis. But Zehu, and this is the idea of Gano Gomer, Galno Gomer. The Gano, he avoided the Kiyum HaMitzvahs. Gano, that's the avoida of the performance of mitzvahs. The Gal no That's the gal, the locked gal. That's the occupation in Torah. Especially the inner part of Torah. And these two avodas tzrichas liyas ba'ofen. They need to be in a way the melechatchila riber, in a way to go to begin with over. Keros bal yoim ha'iledes, as the instruction of the one whose birthday, the Rebbe Maharash. Al derech zeh hu ba'hiluch the yelchu mechayel l'choyel. And the same thing is the way we go from strength to strength, ma'adarge de erusim, from the level, the step of erusim, gan no, which is the mitzvahs, la'adarge de nesuin, gal no, shal hiluch v'ha'aliyah, that going and that elevation, tzarich liyah is ba'ifun l'chatchila riber, in a way to go, to begin with over, u'besaruso de letato, saruso de leila, the way we arouse below, that's the way the arousal is from above. Also, those things that extend from above through this work, these services, should go to begin with over. And also, relative to l'chatchila riber, that the person displayed how he aroused that l'chatchila riber, it goes l'chatchila riber of that as well, of the service of the person. The noisef lazeh she'avoida hi ba'ifan the yogaiti azayu matzosa. In addition, when you put in effort already, you have in a sense l'chatchila riber. You have a matzosi, yogaiti matzosi. And when you find something which is uncomparable to the effort, much more than the effort, finding comes not thinking, and then you find it, that means it's higher than what you invest in your approach. So then so here we're saying, not only is your guide to Matzosi, but the Mitzia itself, is in the way of the So the Rebbe ends with the prayer, that through speaking in these matters, especially not just to talk, but to work in this, then we'll merit very soon the future redemption. Then will be the wholesomeness, the kachenu b'mitzvah secha. It will be the wholesomeness of betroth us with the mitzvahs and give our part and give us our portion of the Torah, which is shleimus ha-mitzvahs. Mitzvahs will be shleimus, as we say, over there we'll do the mitzvahs as you want them. That would be kachenu b'mitzvah on the highest level. And then also shleimus ha-Torah, v'seichel keinu b'seidah secha. Because we say Torah Chadosha Miti Tzeitzah, new Torah will come from me. Shleimus HaTorah. Because a year, and all this should take place, but often in a way, he did not hold them back, even as the blink of an eye, immediately. And even that, in a way, over the top, not to hold them back, even as the blink of an eye, mamish.